ESBR Boxing. We're back with another weekly betting tip show. No study today, no line, but I'm joined by another man on the betting scene who won me a few quid a few weeks ago. Let's put it that way. Danny, how you doing?
All's good, mate. I'll do my best to fill in studies. I'm sure massive shoes. No, good to be looking forward to it. Hopefully get a few winners again.
Yes, absolutely, mate. As you said, there's a big weekend of boxing this weekend on UK shores. We've got a pretty 50-50 fight, I would say, between O'Hara Davis and Lewis Ritson. Um, some great fights on the undercard there too, as well as a really compelling fight stateside between Brandon Figueroa and Mark Magsayo. So yeah, without further ado, Danny, hit me with your first betting tip of the weekend.
Yeah, so we'll go to that first fight you mentioned, the big domestic fight. Obviously, Lewis Ritson versus O'Hara Davis in Newcastle. Very good fight between two super lightweights who I think are probably in a similar place in terms of level. I know Davis is ranked quite well with a couple of the governing bodies at 140. Ritson, remember about that run at lightweight where he was just like smoking everyone on the domestic scene. Ever since then, since both moving up in weight and in class, it's not really got going for him. I think it's fair to say. So it's a huge fight. I favour Davis in it. I think Ritson could start well. He might be able to win a few of the early rounds through volume. Davis doesn't really throw as many punches, but Ritson's not great defensively, and I think Davis will get to him at some point in the fight. Davis is obviously good, very heavy-handed. Ritson's power not really translated since moving up to 140. I think it's fair to say. So that in mind, I'm backing Davis stoppage, and I'm backing him in the second half of the fight, which a market that just came available like 10, 15 minutes before we've hopped on. And you can get Davis round 7 to 12 at 4 to 1, which I think is a fairly solid price. So that's my first tip.
Fantastic, yeah, as you said there, big fight. I can see you can make a case for both men, definitely. I, for one, agree with you. I just think, and although a lot of people have questioned O'Hara Davis and his heart almost because of but they're basing that off the fight with Josh Taylor just before Josh Taylor went on that insane run. That was seen as a 50-50 fight at the time. Obviously, Josh Taylor, look what he's gone on to do, and then OD's only other loss was obviously to Jack Carroll, and it was actually a lot closer than it wasn't a complete shutout. Davis did win a couple of rounds, so yeah, I think that's a great betting tip. I'm going to agree with you. I think O'Hara Davis will break Lewis Ritson down at some stage. I think Ritson showed some vulnerability before, and I completely agree with your tip. But I'll just go with the safer option of an O'Hara Davis stoppage at any time in the fight, at 2 to 1. So I think there's some brilliant odds there, definitely.
Yeah,
Have you got a? Without further ado, we'll may as well keep it going with your second betting tip, Danny.
right on. So second one's for probably the biggest fight of the weekend. It's Brandon Figueroa versus Mark Magsayo, as you touched on. Great fight. Figueroa obviously moved up in weight now to featherweight. Ran Stephen Fulton very close down at 122. So shows the level of fighter. Magsayo obviously recently had his world title taken from him by Ray Vargas. So it's a really interesting fight. I lean towards Figueroa, I think, in the fight. And I think you'll probably stop him. But I've gone for just a fight not to go the distance at even money. Because I was tempted by Figueroa KO, and that was 11 to 8. Then Magsayo does have like fight ending power, without a doubt. He's a very big puncher at the lower weights. And for the difference in price, and you're eliminating that risk of, Magsayo catching him clean and just ending the fight. Because I think the most likely outcome is Figueroa breaks him down through the later rounds, just through volume and body work. But just for the peace of mind and the difference in price, it's obviously a difference, but it's not like huge. You wouldn't notice a big dent in your accumulator, say, from an even money to 11 to 8. So I've just gone for the fight not to go the distance, which you can get at even money.
Yeah, brilliant. I hadn't even looked at any that market, but that's one that would definitely appeal to me because, again, I completely agree with everything you're saying there. We're going to make it 2 out of 2 in agreement here because I'm leaning towards a Brandon Figueroa stoppage. Seeing odds of 7 to 4, so slightly better there. Odds of 7 to 4 for him to win the fight. As you mentioned, Magsayo, a big puncher in his own right as well. He's got like 16 of his 24 wins, I think, or stoppage. But Figueroa is a big puncher. He's huge too, and I don't know. There's just something about Figueroa that I really like. And I think that Magsayo, yes, he beat Gary Russell, but that was a Gary Russell who'd fought like 4 times in 4 years or whatever. was inactive, didn't really look too bothered, and Mike Sayo kind of caught him on a bad night. And yeah, fair play. He lost last time out, Mark Sayo. But he's still a world level fighter, but I just don't think he's as good as Brandon Figueroa, and I'm leaning towards the stoppage there too. So 2 out of 2 we've agreed with. I wonder if we'll make it 3 out of 3. Danny, what's your last betting tip of the week?
The last one's from the Zone show in Mexico, probably the one that's the least hype about it, the least well known of the three shows going on this weekend, the three major shows. It's Angel Fierro to stop Estrella, which you can get around 5 to 6. Fierro's getting a bit of a push off Eddie Hearn and DAZN now. He's got 16 KOs and 20 wins. He's only 24, and he's only been the distance once since 2018, which I think at the time he was like 18, 19. And that was against the fellow Juan Carlos Burgos, who I actually watched on the undercard of Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin. He fought Keyshawn Davis, and I mean, lad, I'm not joking you, Davis battered this fella the whole time. I've never seen a fighter take so many shots. Like, I had bet on Davis KO at the time, and I was like, after 4 rounds, I was like, oh, this is in. But so tough and hung in. And he's the only fella to take Burgos the distance in what's that, 5 years. As I say, 24, he's on the up. Estrella's a good fighter too. Like, he's only been stopped once. That was actually by Mauricio Lara. I was just unchecking on BoxRec before this, but that was up at like 102, 133 pounds. And I know Lara's obviously a massive puncher, but Fierro seems like he could be that sort of fighter. I don't think he has the same like proper devastating power as Lara, but he's more of a volume puncher. He's incredibly entertaining, and I think as like a last wee part to that like accumulator, where we're at 5 to 6, I think it's a fairly solid price.
Yeah, mate, it sounds brilliant to me. I have to admit, I don't know. You seem to know a whole lot about that fight and those fighters, and I mean, I can't. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I know their resumes inside out. But yeah, there has been a lot of hype going about him, and I do understand. I think he is a good fighter as well. Yeah, again, as you say, that will definitely boost your double or treble or your accumulator or whatever it is. I am actually I'm going to lap out and not give a third tip. I'm just going to stick with a double, but I'm just going to mention one that did jump out to me. So on that O'Hara Davis undercard, you've got the Thomas Patrick Ward fight, and I really don't want to butcher the guy's name, but he's fighting the guy from Uzbekistan, Otabek Kolmatov. We'll go with. I think that sounds about right. And he's 10-0, that guy, and he's 9 KOs. But Thomas Patrick Ward, I know he's never actually been beaten. He's got 33 wins, doesn't carry a huge punch. But I think a lot of, especially, UK based featherweights and people around those divisions always meant Thomas Ward's a name that always comes up as being one of the best in the division. So he's clearly is a good fighter. And I don't think I think if I put this into my treble, it would nearly get to about 40-1. But he's 3-1 just to win the fight. And I think that's worth a bet, to be honest with you. I don't know whether well, I won't be backing it probably, but for those out there who want a big price and maybe something that is, I think it's more of a 50-50 fight than the odds suggest. I do favour the Uzbek, but I think at those odds you can't really ignore it. So yeah, I'm gonna refrain from the treble. I'll just go with my double. But I thought I'd just mention that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because remember, we were chatting in the group chat last night, and I did say I thought Ward would get beat. But when I went on and looked at the odds for that, I thought they were like maybe the wrong way around, to be honest. I wouldn't have had that Uzbekistani gentleman as a 2-9 or a 1-3 favourite or whatever it is. And especially Ward being the home fighter. Never lost, as you say, never been stopped. So I actually do think the 3-1 is a very big price, even though I make the other lad a favourite in the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Danny, it gets that point of the betting show where you give us the results of your treble.
Yeah, so if you put Davis round 7 to 12, Mike Sayo and Figueroa not to go the distance, and Fierro KO and a treble, it pays out at just over 17-1. So obviously it's a big ask. You've got a 4-1 in there, but I think like I'll probably have a flutter on it.
Nice one, mate. Yeah, happy days. I don't know. I always say it's a study. A load of my trebles always seem to come out at around 17-1, so there just must be something about it. We'll land on one of these weeks. I'm just
100%.
gonna go with I'm just gonna go with a double of O'Hara Davis to win the fight by stoppage, and Brandon Figueroa to win the fight by stoppage as well, which comes into a double at just around 8-1, which I think is good. Definitely
Yeah,
good odds. So yeah, getting 90 odd quid off mine and 180 quid off yours. So yeah, fingers crossed one of us lands, or well, in fact, well, I suppose both of us could land.
um,
That would be amazing. But Danny, thanks once again for your time, and I enjoyed chatting to there about this week's betting.
no bother, mate. Thanks again.